Yeah, so this is briefly the outline of my presentation or the webinar that I'm going to give. I'll be talking about what is the robust control and why do you need robust control. Then I'll be walking you through the ideas whereby you can actually devise one of your own. Whereby I'll be talking about how to actually achieve robust control in design. Then I'll be talking about what are the tools. So definitely, once you are well versed with the ideas of how to bring it into a robust control framework, you would also like to understand that what are the tools that are available in the market which will help you implement a robust control. Then I'd be telling you what are the different and where you can actually apply robust control theory. So what are the applications as such? Well, why? Because definitely if you know all the aspects, you would be excited enough and curious enough to know that what all things and what all applications which you see in the real world potential to apply a robust control. And then definitely since you would be working more on a pragmatic or a practical fashion, you would want to understand that where do you fit in as a robust control expert or a robust control engineer. Definitely I'll give you a flow. I'll talk about everything in a way by which you'll understand as well as you'll enjoy finding the fact that robust control is ubiquitous. Okay, so as I said, first I'll talk about what is the impact of control in industry. Now, what stats you are seeing on the screen, it is from a research paper whereby they tried understanding, and it's a recent one. Definitely, I put down the research reference in my citation. So, what the research paper actually talks about is the fact that how exactly the academia and the industry, they are actually in terms of knowing each other's capabilities and trying to bring a midway or a break even point whereby they can work together and make sure that a particular control theory propagates. But over the time they have understood that there are certain kinds of control theory which have propagated in a very flourishing way as compared to the others. Well, why? Because of the very fact that they have their own set of pros and cons. In terms of practical implementation, whereby, so if I talk about an academic aspect, many of the things are more in the direction of research, whereby you want to make it, more sharpened, or you want to make it more correct, you want to make it more precise, and you want to find out new avenues in terms of understanding that what this entire control theory can actually serve to. Whereas on the other end, when you are in the industry, you are more, focused in the direction of actually implementing a certain given application. So, like you might be a solar systems expert, or you might be actually in an automobile industry, whereby you are given a task of maybe generate a particular electrical output to drive air conditioner inside an automobile, or maybe you want to have a zip drive kind. So they have their own set of applications. So I would say industry would be more of an application oriented, whereas academia is more of research oriented, where they want to find out new set of revenues. As we are all aware that there are so many control theories which are already available in the research as well as in the industrial setup. But if there is a way by which we can understand that if there is a break even point whereby we can use some ideas from the academia and some from the industry in order to bring significant contributions on the table. So as we know, there are PID controls, proportional integral derivative controls. You have system identification, estimation and filtering, model predictive control, and data analytics and whatnot. So I'll not go into the much details of the other control technologies that are specified on this particular table. I'll talk more about the robust control part. Now, the stats that you're seeing is the assessment done by around 67 to 70 odd respondents who were from the industry, definitely, who were asked certain set of questions in terms of knowing their perspective of how exactly a particular control technology is propagated and how exactly the impact is from the point, like 5 years down the lane, to the point where they are actually implementing it till now. So the current impact and the percentage of share of a certain robust control technology, or maybe I'd say that the respondents who commented that a given technology in the current setup is pretty much having a high impact, had a statement or had an opinion that around 26% of the respondents see that in the current setup the robust control theory is having a huge impact, whereas the 42% of the respondents thought that maybe in the future, maybe like 5 years down the lane, robust control theory would be gaining up, or maybe it will start gaining its importance, in the sense that people are still in the verge of still on the verge of understanding where the robust control theory actually fits in. Now, what I want to put forward from this particular data is to make you guys understand that think about it, like, majority of the applications that we are working into, like maybe even automobile, or maybe the, like, I think you guys must have seen the renewable energy power plants or power systems for that matter. Majority of the points we are actually having control, which are fact devices or PID controls. We do know the fact that, so they are, if I talk about automobile, you do know that model predictive controls standards as well as all maturities that have been already developed in the control market, I would say. But then, what is the next step? So if you achieve a certain set of control, you also want to make it robust, right? Now, when I say robust, the English term, and I think many of you guys might be knowing, but considering the fact that you guys are not that, even if you are not aware of the fact, I would say that robust is nothing but, even if you have, like, if you have uncertainties or disturbances, external perturbations which are coming into picture, you want to make sure that the objectives of a given control is being served to. So what do you do in a robust control? You just try to implement a control strategy whereby, even if there is a scenario whereby external interferences, so like if I have to give you an example, I'd say that if you are actually working on an electromagnetic device, like let's say if you are working on a TV, or maybe you are working on a computer, there are so many other external interferences, electromagnetic interferences that come into the share, right? In those cases, how are you going to make sure that the hard drive, or maybe the picture tube control strategy, or the picture tube feedback control system is actually taking right set of decisions, even in the set of disturbances coming into picture? So that is the point where robust control actually peeps in. And if you can understand all the applications, not the other applications, all the applications that actually we are aware of, somewhere or the other has external disturbances coming into picture. And hence you can understand that why 42% of the respondents thought that even if the current deployment of a robust control strategy in the market, in the industry as well as in the academia, is only around 26%, but it has a high potential towards 42 and even more. So it is like, only 5 years down the lane, considering that there are so many other things which are coming into picture, like sustainability and whatnot. But there are very high chances that the total amount of impact that the robust control would have in the future would be quite higher as compared to the 42% of the people who had responded in a positive way. Moving forward, the same research paper talks about the unawareness that is there due to the academic interactions. Now, what happens is, like, many times the industrial audiences, they are, as I mentioned, that there is a kind of a gap between the two. But then when we want to understand that, okay, how these robust control technologies can be deployed, whereby, I mean, when I used to, I mean, if I have to give an example, when I used to work in the industry, there was always this thing whereby we used to get stuck into a certain kind of an objective or certain kind of a problem. But then what happens is that when we are working in the industry, we do work with a certain set of goals, and there are so high chances that you might get caught into the fact that you don't know the actual integrities of the particular robust control, or maybe adaptive control, or MPC or whatnot. So in those cases, what happens is that in those cases, academic interactions come to the rescue. So the respondents that those who actually commented that, okay, robust control will be something which might have a higher or a lower impact. They actually thought of that. These are the four prime set of control theories. You have model predictive control, you have robust control, adaptive control, and nonlinear control. Sorry. In all these four cases, what happens is that when we want to classify in terms of its significance pertaining to different kinds of industries, like process industry, or maybe an aerospace, or an automotive, or in automobile industries, in those cases, what happens is that you need to have these kind of controls which are pretty much available, or maybe be deployed in the picture. But then when you have interactions with the academia, in those cases you can actually bring in, so the stats that you are seeing here, it's an outcome of an unawareness which is happening, which is there in the industry. whereby people think that, okay, MPC is the only one that can be easily deployable in an industry or a real-time setup. But then I do believe that there are so many other set of control strategies which are available in not only in robust control, even in adaptive control or nonlinear control. Even I think the game theory, or maybe if I have to talk about the distributed averaging or consensus control, these are all deployable. I mean, gone are the days whereby we used to think that, okay, anything that is on a hardware is something, which is you have to bang your head and get certain amount of outputs on the table. Now you can actually use so many other tools which are available in the market, right from OpelRT to DSpace, which I'll be talking about in the later slides. But then the unawareness fact which is there in the industry can be easily bridged through using the table that you're seeing, whereby people in the automotive industry thought that there are only 10% chances that the robust control would be having a higher impact. Or they thought that, okay, in an automotive industry, I think 30% of the respondents were saying that, okay, there is a chance that the robust control does not, or maybe it has a very low impact on the total outcome of the industry. So and so on, and then the stats tell about that. Okay, the overall win-win kind of a control is nothing but an MPC. But then I do believe the fact that these are the numbers which are an outcome of an unawareness which goes through when you want to actually get some interactions from the academia and make sure that the numbers can actually change if you have a good set of communication with the academics. Again, so this is the slide which you guys would be more interested in, whereby I talk about what is the compounded annual growth rate of a given control. So I'd say when I talk about an industrial control or an automotive control, it actually bounds for around 5 to 4% of CAGR. The more I would say more higher set of contributors are nothing but the cross-industry technologies, whereby you have cybersecurity and digital transformation as well as Internet of Things. I do think that you guys might be aware of the fact that in the recent future or in the recent past, strategies of digital transformation, machine learning, and artificial intelligence is on a huge boom, right? So they do contribute a huge amount of share when it goes to a CAGR. But then you should not neglect the fact that smart home automation and industrial robotics is still in the picture. They are actually providing a good amount of share to the total annual growth rate. Okay, so these are the inferences, and then I think these are the same set of descriptions that I gave for the previous three tables. So I just put it down so that later when maybe once I'm done with the presentation, you can go through it, even if you might have missed anything on my communication part. Okay, so now we are done with the ideas and understanding of how exactly the annual growth rate and the commercial aspects actually seep into when it goes to understanding a robust control theory, or maybe deploying a robust control theory. Next, what we are going to see is that how exactly you have to structure the entire robust control design in order to implement it in a feedback form. So definitely, this is just a block diagram or a blueprint which talks about what are the different go in a robust control design. So first thing that you have to understand that what are the system interconnections or the plant. So basically, if I talk about an automotive industry, if you are deploying a quad rotor, if you're deploying a robust control on a quad rotor, what you have to do is that you have to understand that what are the different implications and what are the characteristics or the system transfer functions, or what are the interconnections that actually go inside the design of the entire quad rotor. So you do a mathematical modeling, and then that mathematical modeling, either you keep it into a Laplace form, or maybe you convert it into a state space form. You make a system interconnections whereby you design the vectors which do talk about what are the different set of control as well as the system parameters. Now, on the basis of which you have to decide on what are the different disturbances, what are the different uncertainties which are going to come into picture, what are the other control signals which you want to control using the system interconnection, as well as the feedback control that you are going to design using the controller, as well as the external noises and the tracking as well as the reference signals. Now, tracking errors and the reference signals are nothing but so I would say this can be considered as the output, or whereby you check that, okay, you have a reference signal which is given to you and you want to track that reference signal. if there are uncertainties and disturbance coming into picture, there will always be a very, like milli or micro quantified kind of an error which will exist. But if there is a way by which you can actually, filter out those set of errors also, it could be something which will be more significant. Now, as you can understand, now this is a blueprint, which in the next slide I'll tell you how exactly you model into a robust control framework. I mean, obviously one of them, but then there is a lot to when it goes into a robust control theory. But I think one of the questions that might pop up into your heads is, okay, what is the difference between the disturbance, the uncertainty, and noise? So I'd say disturbance is anything which, so they are all characterized on the basis of the structure. So I would say definitely they all have a Gaussian structure. They might have a Gaussian distribution, or they might have a certain distributions on the basis of which they are, being implied from one set of one system to the other. Uncertainty is the one which you might have not quantified for your, or you might have not called for. Disturbance is something which you do know the fact that, okay, if you have two television sets which are set to the other, or maybe if you have a computer and a television set which is set to the other, you do know that there is a chance of some amount of electromagnetic interference that would possibly happen from TV to the computer, or from computer to the. I'm not restricting you from imagining this fact in this way, that these were more evident when it comes to a CRT monitors, or the cathode ray tubes. But then in terms of the LCDs, you still have an impact, but the impact is not that huge. But then yes, you can also consider it as a disturbance. And then when I talk about the noise is something whereby you are still not aware. I mean, you cannot quantify it exactly, but you do know that, okay, it is going to be in the entire system anyways. Like, if I have to talk about on a television signal, you are actually experiencing those black and white dots. You do know that that is always going to be there. So if you can design a system whereby even in those scenarios, if there is no signal, definitely you cannot get anything out of it. But if you have a signal and still your entire visual is actually unclear, those are the points where you can actually make provisions in order to bypass them. Okay, again, the one which we saw on the previous slide was just a blueprint whereby you just put down, okay, these are the points, these are the parameters that I want to control. But then now we have to get into the actual theory of robust control design. So what you do, once you are decided on what are the different parameters which actually go as the input, what are the different parameters which goes or comes out as the output, what are the disturbances, what are the noises, what are the different set of uncertainties. So then what you do is that you try to put it into a structured format. Now what you're seeing on the screen is just one defined way in the robust control literature, whereby we call it as linear fractional transformations, whereby what you do is that you design a vector which is comprising of, so I'd say the W that you're seeing is nothing but the vector comprising of noises, disturbances, and reference signals. Whereas the outputs, Z, the Z that you're seeing out is nothing but comprising of control signals and tracking errors. On the other hand, you have two different partitions in the entire design, whereby one is used for controlling the signals, the other is used for suppressing the disturbances which are coming into picture. So I'd say P is nothing but the entire system interconnection, or carries the information of the entire system characteristics and how the system would be performing. So I'd say P is nothing but the interconnection matrix comprising of the model parameters. K is nothing but the controller gain, or not only the controller gain, because if you're not going for a linear control, if you're going for a nonlinear kind of a control, or maybe if you're going for H infinity, or these are just jargons I'm just putting forward so that you know that there are different kinds of control design techniques which go into robust control theory. So K is just the controller, and delta is nothing but the set of uncertainties modeled into a mathematical mapping. Okay, moving forward, now I'll talk about, okay, I have given you a description and a wide understanding of how exactly the robust control design can be put up on a piece of paper. You can actually put it down and understand that what are the implications, what are the things that you want to control, what are the different set of uncertainties, and what all kind of theories actually go into the picture. But then you also have to understand the fact that at the point where you want to implement these ideas, because as it goes, right, like you might be on the fact that you have understood everything, you know that how exactly you are going to, you'll be putting down the disturbances which will be inside a certain windowed bounds. You have a disturbance or a noise which is actually inside a certain limit. You have an upper and a lower bounds which are already decided for a given noise, or maybe you have decided on a distribution whereby you know that how the uncertainties and the noises are going to be playing a role in the entire control strategy as such. And you do have decided on what is going to be your objective. So I'd say, let's say you have decided on the fact that I want to do a tracking control, or maybe you want to go ahead and reduce the amount of time. So let's say you have already implemented an MPC controller, whereby you have nicely attained your objective of tracking a reference. But then all of a sudden you understand that there are certain set of uncertainties which are actually playing a huge amount of role, whereby it is impacting the output of the entire system. So what do? You go ahead for a robust control. And in fact, if you go into the literature, you'll find out there is something called as tube MPC. Tube MPC is nothing but a robust MPC, which I think which is implemented like around 10 years back. It came into the existence just because of the same fact, whereby you did know about the fact that MPC is quite achievable in an industry, but then there are robustness issues that actually come into picture which you want to cater to, and hence you implemented something called as a bounded MPC, which is nothing but the tube MPC. Again, I'm telling you some of the jargons which you might be thinking of, I'm putting you off on a certain different horizon. But then these are the things that possibly, if you go ahead and look into the robust control theory, they are pretty much achievable, and you might find it interesting when it actually comes to the industrial as well as academic perspective. Coming back to the point, once you have decided on the fact that, okay, I want to go ahead and implement a certain robust control theory, maybe tube MPC, like I'll stick on to your favorite topic or favorite control. So I'd say, if I want to go and implement a robust MPC, so what I do that once I, like going back to my previous slide, I'd say once I have designed such kind of a interconnection, or maybe you choose different way, like the one that I'm showing is nothing but a state space design, but you might also think of designing a controller in a Laplace transform. So let's say you have already made the entire framework. You do know that where you are going to put the controller and where you are going to mitigate the issues that are that do come into existence because of the uncertainties and disturbance and noises. Now the next thing that you have to do is to define and put it down on a simulation environment. So now we do know the fact that if I want to create a prototype, or maybe I want to implement it into an industry, the first thing that I have to do is I have to prove the entire point, like a proof of concept in a computer simulation. So I'd say there are so many tools that are available in the market. I mean, gone were the days, I know when I started and I spoke about the same thing. Gone are the days where you had only one tool which was available to you. Maybe I think many of you guys might have worked in embedded C, or maybe you guys have only worked in MATLAB, or maybe you guys have actually gone through these tools that I'm showing on the screen. And apart from that, you might have actually went through so many other. I think Julia is coming up. So people have so many tools that have been developed in the market. What I want to tell you is these are the basic tools. If you know these, I think you are pretty much good to go when it comes to robust control. Actually, not only robust control, but any control theory for that matter. So MATLAB and Simulink, definitely what you have designed has to be put down into a Simulink environment block by block. So that is the easiest way of doing it. So let's say you make that the linear fractional transformation design in the previous slide that I shown. And then what you do is that you just go on dragging down the boxes from the Simulink toolbox, and then you interconnect them, and then you get the corresponding robust control output out of the same. Again, if you are more on the coding end, like you like coding and you want to convert, so I do that. I like what happens is I really hate Simulink. No offenses to anyone who is actually a big fan of it, but then when you are more aware of the part of what is going inside, like if you can write down the entire chunk of code, and you can have entire control of the entire design or the characteristics of the system or the properties of the system, I feel that makes more impact when it comes to playing with the parameters and understanding that what is going to be the impact on the overall system. So I try to take that Simulink environment or Simulink model that you have prepared, and then definitely get it converted into a MATLAB code. Now MATLAB, I think I mean, all of you might be well versed, even if you are not well versed and knowing what MATLAB is. So MATLAB is nothing but a analytics and a scientific tool whereby it was initially perceived with the idea of implementing analysis and a scientific platform whereby you can propagate the ideas and understand that what kind of simulations or the analytical outputs can be drawn out of it. But then over the time, with the popularity, it has turned into a software which can also be used for prototyping. Again, embedded C, I'd say embedded C is more of a language. MATLAB is considered to be a software or a client as well as a language. Embedded C is again a language whereby if you can master this, it's just C, but then you have different kinds of syntaxes whereby you can actually get it implemented on a hardware. So like if you guys might have worked on softwares like Keel, or maybe you might have worked on Raspberry Pi, or maybe Arduino, whereby there are provisions whereby you can put it down entirely in a C code. DSpace is again agenda or a forum whereby you can have your hardware as well as software tools which for analysis and simulations. Now DSpace, I think majority of you guys might have used for the fact that where you want to go ahead for a hardware in loop simulations. So there are three things that you want to do before you actually go for a prototyping. So the first thing that you will do is a complete computer or a software simulation whereby there is no hardware connected to the computer and you're just seeing it on an imaginary platform and understanding what are the implications of different kinds of parameter to it. Embedded C is the one where you are going to completely implement it on a hardware. The second thing that you do is going for a hardware in loop simulation where some part of the entire system, let's say plant or the controller, is taken care of by a computer. But then there is also hardware connected to the computer in order to see those things in the action. So those are nothing but called as hardware in loop simulations, and they can be easily implemented using the DSpace. Again, you have OpenRT, that is the third step. So if you are okay with doing a computer simulation like an imaginary environment, if you are okay with doing it a half imaginary and half practical environment, which is nothing but hardware in loop, then you can go ahead and completely deploying it on a hardware using some real-time real-time hardware or firmware solutions like OpenRT. Then once you are okay with it, the prototyping part comes in where you have to give the entire control to something like a digital signal processor or maybe an Arduino board, whereby the controller takes care of everything. Then you are no longer someone who is controlling the ideas or system where you want to achieve a robust control. Then there is a intelligent code that is sitting on the DSP board or an Arduino board which takes care of everything. And last but not the least, you have Python. I think majority of you guys are so much aware and maybe hearing so much about Python these days that I think it's self-explanatory. But then I think Simulink or kind of a simulation environments are not that much well versed when it comes to Python. It has a long way to go, but I'm not restricting, or maybe I'm not constraining myself from saying that Python is propagating so much in these days, and it is getting promoted so much that Python would be having such kind of dynamical equation or scientific toolboxes available in Python. Definitely, there are toolboxes which are available in Python. You might have gone through so many other there in Python that you can do similar stuffs that you can do in MATLAB. But then I do believe that they are still in a little immature kind of a phase. But with more usability and more defining the bugs and fixing them, I think Python will have their own set of toolboxes which can carry it forward in terms of doing prototyping for any given set of control theory. Okay, that is that. Okay, before moving on to applications, I've also wanted to tell you one more thing. I'm not restricting you guys to understand the fact that the tools that I had listed down in my previous slide, they are the only tools. Okay, so if you actually go into the different literature, you'll find out there are so many different tools that are available, and they are mature enough. So I think if you are looking for a alternate for a MATLAB, you'll actually go for Scilab. And I mean, there are loads of them. And I think people who are much versed with the ideas of implementing codes in Python, they do know the fact that there is something called as Julia, which is coming up. There is something called as AutoML by Google, whereby I do understand that they are going to take all the things away. I mean, so not scaring you guys, but there are so many tools that are available in the market which will actually help you out if you are not well versed or comfortable enough using the tools which I had shown. Okay, so moving on, I'll then before I wrap up, I wanted to tell you that what all applications actually you would be looking into when you are doing a robust control. Definitely, the automobile sector, whereby electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles and whatnot, which are coming into the market these days. There is huge amount of scope, because you have to understand the fact that these are being so much exposed to the uncertainties and disturbance from the nature, that they have to actually implement a robust control theory into it. And I do believe that automobiles, I think when I started off and talk about the respondents, giving their comments on how exactly robust control is going to propagate. But this is my own ideology and my own perception that the robust control is something which is going to pick up while you are actually implementing machine learning fundamentals into the system. So if you can consider it like this way, and I think it is going to be more beautiful as if you see it from a different perspective. So you have already implemented uh, your machine learning to understand that how exactly the Google Maps would be working. But then consider it like that this way, that you have certain amount of objectives which are listed down onto a entire automobile, and the actions that are being taken, like let's say the autopilot or auto transmission. These kind of things can actually can be easily taken up by implementing a robust control, because you do know the fact that throttling and everything, even in an electric vehicle, it needs precision, which in an uncertain environment might not be that easy. Again, robotics, I think it is a well flourishing field, and it has a long way to go. With machine learning and artificial intelligence seeping in, I think robotics is also going to need something called as robust control for its gantry crane systems, systems biology. So I'm putting it down on different dimensions. Okay, so gantry crane systems are the ones which actually you see in the process industries or maybe manufacturing units. In fact, if I have to tell you, third and the fourth ones are the one where I myself have written a paper which talks about a robust control using convex optimization. So there are very huge set of dimensions and degrees of freedom that are available to you. If it is available to me, I think it's definitely available to you. So yeah, these are the two, mechanical and biological systems. So if I have to give you just a brief, in a systems biology example, I implemented robust control for gene suppression or gene regulation. So gene regulation is what, like the protein synthesis which happens in your body, which in turn defines your DNA and your genes. Next is power systems, smart grids. Smart grids is a new thing. Power systems, though conventional, there are so many other regulations which are coming into picture in order to make sure that it gets converted into a smarter one with newer ideas of energy arbitraging and whatnot. So I think there also a robust control will play a big role. And then I would not deny the fact that aerospace and process industries are the ones which have already been deploying the ideas of robust control, but then there are so many advances and updations which are so there is a scope of so many advances and upgradations in the near future. Again, lastly, what all things you can actually earn when you actually learn the robust control theory. And in academic research, as I said, there are so many other inclinations or inflections that are available. Integral quadratic constraints is something which is newly coming up. I think many of you who might have actually are actually in the field of robust control, you do know that there is something called as H2, H infinity, mu synthesis, and linear fractional transforms and whatnot. But in those cases, there are a certain set of issues. I'll talk about it later, but let's say as of now, there is a new idea which is nothing but integral quadratic constraint, which covers up these ideas and makes sure that the entire control is more effective. So there are so many inclinations and inflections that are available if you're actually going for an MS or a PhD. Or maybe if you just want to do research or provide contributions to the scientific world. On the other hand, in the industrial deployments, as I already said, there are huge amount of scope that is available in electric vehicles and quadrotors. You can definitely become a consultant, like maybe a freelance control designer, whereby you can provide your ideas to the people who. So industry is actually they keep on looking when they get into a pickle. So I think you can be a consultant as well as you can become a freelance control designer. And definitely, if you are pretty much aware of the fact that robust control is going to be abiding, or it is going to be amalgamated to all the sets of control which are available in the market, you can definitely start something of your own whereby you can be an entrepreneur just doing robust control. So these are the things that I wanted to talk about. These are my citations from where I gain these ideas, and I usually keep a track of. Yeah.